month. And first of all, this is, if you did not read the description or the title I put for this one, actually wrong title. Yep, I need to change the title. Just a moment. Cut. This is not a scenario as you're probably used to. This is a story scenario where basically story is explored, people just talk, and there is no such thing as fighting in this scenario. So if that's not your cup of free tea, I can live with you skipping this, even though you will miss out on a lot of story, which I think in this campaign is pretty amazing, so maybe don't skip it. So remember the last scenario, you beat up a couple of Chaos Empire's battalions, anyway a lot of enemy units, and now you follow this Dwarvish Rune Master who's taking you to the Dwarvish King to talk. This dwarf, Alturin by name, led us through curving tunnels that opened upon a great cavern. There lay a sprawling city, the capital of the kingdom. This greedy race was one tremendously despised by many of our ancestors, due in part to their disinterest in protecting the beautiful and green places of their world. Indeed, it is said amongst us that the dwarves would destroy Earth's beauty for wealth and power. And yet, their mason-shaped structures of great beauty from rock, their smiths fashioned marvelous wonders out of metal and other materials they found underground. These very things that we elves could not help but admire. These were things that we elves could not help but admire. The mastery of ancient magic was also remarkable. By carving runes onto surfaces such as shields, hammers, or even walls, and imbuing them with a force not understood by even the mightiest elven sorcerers, they could work powerful and complex spells. Some of these rune workings were used in defensive structures against enemies, and had to be temporarily suppressed in order to allow Elendar and the League access into the heart of the city, the castle of the king. Scenario 8x, as an addendum to the previous scenario, Royal Meeting. King Astorgar, welcome friends. It's been a long time since your kingsmen last visited us, but tell me, what are your names? What brings you here to the depths of the kingdom of the Hardgar? And most importantly, why is there a cursed leech in this chamber? We can explain, Your Highness. I am Galas, leader of the elves of the Valley of Elinia. This is Elendar and the Leech Malkasha, our guide and quite an important ally of ours. We would not be standing here in one piece without his help. I heard enough of this old wild creature you rooked into my domain. Then you realize how dangerous it is to deactivate our defenses just to let your pet in? I would not tolerate this folly if you weren't from the Queen of King. I beg your pardon, Your Highness, but what are you talking about? King, you fellow dwarves spoke of elves from the desert when they first met us. Am I to assume that they identified themselves as the Queen of People? Did they truly come from the desert to visit you? You asked too many questions. They were the Queen of Elves of the desert. It was a few centuries ago that they helped our brethren in the south and opened the route to the restoration of our kingdom. You never heard of them before? That's unexpected. So, from whence do you come? I hadn't stopped to wonder why you seemed so different from what our historians describe. I reckon you're not from the desert then? That's correct. We actually came from a secluded valley far from here, in which our ancestors found a favorable environment to settle. We were invaded by an army of the same force that I see has already arrived at your doors, the Chaos Chaos Empire. But I had never heard before of any large population of our kind living in the desert. What is this that you did not tell me before, Elinde? There was a civil war sometime after the fall, Galas. You have to understand that such a world-changing event had similar consequences for every other civilization on the great continent and beyond. After the matter was settled and the flames of conflict subsided, our ancestors parted ways. Two groups, different directions. We are the direct descendants of the group led by Lord Telhir of Telian. No one ever heard from the other group again. Until now. That would explain why many of the foes we have fought thus far are aware of our existence. Your Highness, what was the fate of the Queen of Elves? It said that they were in search of a new home in the far north, led by a young boy much like you, by the name of Kalasar. Our kin sent a soldier along them, who eventually returned to tell quite an unusual tale. To put things into perspective, you have to realize that much of the green in the land was still desert back then. Akin had been a few centuries, but things have changed since then. Some believe in otherworldly force works to fix this fractured world bit by bit. That's not a tale I was going to tell. Anyway, they didn't continue north. They were attacked by humans led by a wretched abomination posing as the goddess Elo. But the humans were no match for young Kala and his conviction indeed. Then they were contacted by Merfolk, who guided them to Sokan, some island in the ocean. There they slew the impersonator Yanknagoth, the Eater of Souls, and this feat dispelled a curse that kept the minds of the peoples over the sands tied to the monster's will. But this just a story from a lunatic who barely made it back home. The poor thing provided them with a vivid account of the journey though. You may ask her too later for all the details I omitted for the sake of brevity, if you're so inclined. Sounds quite impressive for a mere band of elves. But it wasn't just a band of them. They brought all of their people for the journey. Anyway, what do you know about the Chaos Empire? Murderers and thieves aided by the so-called mother of all demons from beyond this world. That's what they are. But 200 years ago, they forced the southern class in Gnalvaden to abandon their caves and move here. But far too many were slaughtered and captured before the king acceded to evacuate. The Chaos Fiends even got their claws on some mighty war contraptions our brethren designed, and the poor engineers. Oh, we never heard of them again. I'm just owing this much right now, because this is a reference I never got before. And I won't spoil it, but I will point it out when it turns up again. Just let me screenshot and tell the author that I finally appreciate its reference. Like, damn, this is nice. We have been told that the powerful warlord is bringing an army to strike against Hardcore, as if there were anything in these caves that could be useful to them. The point is, I heard your people are looking for a new home, but we cannot provide you with one here and now. However, the far north has remained relatively peaceful for a couple of centuries, and I'm sure the humans would come here in their country. I just cannot guarantee that it will last for long. If you can forgive me, there's so many things to do before we do battle with the demons. If there's anything left to discuss, it must wait till dinner. It's no problem, Your Highness. We are grateful for your counsel. Wait, what? Cool! Another reference. Like, I didn't notice those guys, but I liked the reference and I must appreciate right now. And yeah, this is another thing I will point out later. What do we do now? I don't think the Dwarf King is going to be of help to us. He seems largely ignorant of less mundane affairs. We need to search for the Lady of Light and her consort on our own. But his advice is sound, actually. If there are humans in the far north, there might be a chance for our people to survive the forthcoming invasion, if we send them to those lands. I shall lead an expedition to the far north then. Galas, as the Regent Lord appointed by Lord Ledinor, you should be beside us when we find her. It will be an important first meeting after all this time since the fall of our ancestors. Well, in that case, Enodian, would you lead our mainhast and civilians to the humans? My lord, are you suggesting that I? If it weren't for Lady Onaya and you, we would have lost many more men and women to the sands. Your leadership in my absence was essential to our survival. By the way, Onaya is this one, and you might remember her from that Eisenhardt scenario, where she was there and talking, and she was the one who took charge of them, but wasn't visible. So, yes, my lord, if I'm allowed to interrupt, Lord Gallas, I may have heard of this Lady of Light before. Oh, now the dwarfs decided to be useful. Why didn't you say so before? Yeah, never said exactly what you were looking for in this case. What do you know about her? We have home lore about this elvish heroine from 100 or so years after the first cataclysm. This is quite confusing, really, but it's not a point. My late master once told me a fascinating story about what he found while exploring the deepest caves in these mountains. He was but a lad back then, but though quite a well-versed one in the art of runecrafter. He was searching for rare metals that can only be found near the warmer caves, where they were occasionally spurged from below, and strange ferocious monsters lurk behind every corner. It was around those parts that his runic artifacts had detected a strong power like he'd never seen before, hiding beneath. He said that he could see a light in the darkness of this abyss, and he felt that there was something alive there. Alas, he didn't have the resources or time to proceed further down. Even till his death, he wondered what might have been there. That could be the lead we needed. Did your master by any chance leave indication as to how to reach these caves? Aye, he did. I could guide you as well. It's not exactly advisable to explore the uncharted depths of the heart of Uria if you're not a dwarf. If that is a thing you can do, I mean, without the king taking offense to this plan, we wouldn't need to rally on you if I were to allow to turn the elves into undead. Why would you want to risk your life on our mission anyway? As I said before, our lore master have recorded the stories of the sorceress. From what I figured, she's probably the most powerful one ever seen by any dwarf, orc, or even elf. This said she was cursed to live for the rest of eternity. And this said, yeah, as punishment for the art she delved into. My master took an interest in those stories I have discovered in the deep. And I want to find out the truth. And in any case, you saved our lives. You all saved our lives, and in particular mine. I am in debt for your saving me from the followers of Uria. Sending you on a suicidal mission now would not be good form, would it? Fair enough, Alturan. We will gladly accept your help. And hi, Inky. I I've no idea about the fashion sense of dwarves or of anyone at all, so I just believe your word. So we'll gladly accept your help. Yeah, that's the story scenario. At this point I make a short break to, well, separate the videos, so people who don't watch the story, well, don't have to. See you in a moment.